Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy Science Channel. Tonight, we are wandering into the vibrant world of personality types. Not as labels that confine you, but as models that help you notice patterns in yourself and those around you. Why do some people come alive in a buzzing room, while others think best in calm situations? Why can two people love each other deeply and still clash over timing, tone, or trust? And why your own type can feel solid in one moment, then shift when life asks something different of you. Personality science sits at the crossroads of biology, culture, memory, and choice. It touches friendships, work, creativity, stress, and the stories you tell yourself about who you are. It can reveal blind spots, unexpected strengths, and small changes that ripple outward over years. If you enjoy these gentle journeys, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. But for now, allow yourself to get settled in. Let your body relax and allow your breathing to slow. And as your eyes begin to grow heavy, allow the day to gently fade away as we explore this fascinating inner world together. Let's begin. Introverts don't always prefer being alone, but they do tire faster from stimulation. For many introverts, the drain is not dislike. It is the cost of processing. Conversation carries tone, timing, facial cues, and fast decisions about what to say next. Add music, bright lights, background chatter, and multiple side conversations. The brain works overtime to sort it all. An introvert might love a party at the start, then feel their attention fray like a thin thread. They may step outside, sit with a drink, or seek one deep talk in a quieter corner. Afterward, recovery can look like silence, a walk, a book, or a familiar show. This is not antisocial. It is nervous system budgeting. Many introverts are warm, funny, and bold in settings that fit. The difference is endurance, not affection. Extroverts are not always loud. They often seek social reward. Some extroverts sparkle in a crowd. Others are calm, even soft-spoken, and still feel a lift when people connect. Social reward can be laughter, shared purpose, teamwork, or the simple sense of being included. Many extroverts think out loud because feedback helps them shape thoughts. They may call a friend when stressed because talking turns tension into something manageable. They often scan for opportunities, like a new group, a new idea, or a new plan for the weekend. This is not shallow. It is a motivation system tuned toward engagement. When social needs go unmet, an extrovert can look restless or flat. When the need is met, energy rises and everything seems possible, including harder work. Two people can share traits, yet live very different inner worlds. Picture two people that both score high on openness. One is drawn to painting and poetry. The other is drawn to robotics and mountain geology. The same trait can express through different interests, values, and histories. Even shared anxiety can feel different. One person worries about being excluded. Another worries about making mistakes. Those worries lead to different habits, different coping styles, and different stories about what is at stake. Personality is not a single switch. It is a bundle of tendencies that meet a life. Culture, family rules, and early experiences shape what you notice first, what you interpret as danger, and what you expect from others. So two people can look similar on paper and still navigate the day with different questions echoing inside. Personality predicts life outcomes, almost like a quiet lifelong weather system. It does not decide your fate. It does tilt probabilities, the way climate nudges what grows in a region. Conscientious people often keep appointments, pay bills on time, and stick with boring practice. Over years, those small acts accumulate. Highly agreeable people may build strong networks because others feel safe with them. High neuroticism can raise stress exposure by making setbacks feel sharper and more urgent. Extraversion can open doors through networking, leadership, and visibility, even when talent is equal. Openness can pull you toward learning, travel, and creative risk. None of this is magic. It is repetition. A trait shapes choices. Choices shape environments. Environments shape opportunities. The result can be seen in health, relationship stability, earnings, and even how often someone feels satisfied with their days. Tiny patterns become big outcomes. Many traits run in families, even when children grow up apart. This is one of the most surprising findings in personality research. When twins raised in different homes are studied as adults, they often share trait patterns more than strangers do. That does not mean parenting does not matter. It means biology contributes ingredients like sensitivity to reward, baseline reactivity, and typical energy level. Environment still decides how those ingredients are cooked. A child with high activity might become a dancer in one home and a restless rule breaker in another. A naturally cautious child might become careful and wise, or become anxious and avoidant, depending on support and stress. Family resemblance can also show up in humor, persistence, or how quickly someone warms to new people. The key is this. Inheritance is a starting push, not a script, and life can steer it in many directions. The big 5 traits appear across many cultures and languages. When researchers ask people to describe themselves and others, certain patterns keep returning. Words cluster around broad dimensions like being organized versus scattered, warm versus abrasive, calm versus easily upset. The labels vary by language, and the social meaning can shift, but the underlying structure often reappears. That matters because it suggests personality is not only a Western invention. It is partly rooted in human social life, where cooperation, risk, status, curiosity, and emotional sensitivity are universal pressures. Still, culture shapes the spotlight. In one place, being outspoken is praised. In another, restraint is treated as maturity. People also learn which parts of themselves to show. So the Big 5 offers a shared map, but it does not erase local values. It helps explain both what humans share and how societies sculpt expression. Your friends rate your personality more accurately than you expect. You live inside your intentions. Your friends live with your patterns. They notice what actually happens when plans change, when conflict appears, or when praise arrives. You might remember the one time you were brave. A friend remembers that you usually hesitate, then act once you feel safe. You might feel generous because you want to be. A friend may notice when your help comes with control or when you vanish under stress. This is not a judgment. It is a different camera angle. Friends also sample you across time, which reduces the influence of a single mood. Strangers can be fooled by charm or nerves. Close observers see the baseline. That is why feedback from trusted people can be so useful. It can reveal strengths you underestimate, and it can reveal habits you never named, until someone reflected them back to you. People change most during big transitions, not during quiet routines. When life stays the same, your habits keep winning by default. Then, something shifts. A new city, a new relationship, a new parent role, a new illness, a new job that demands different behavior. Transitions force you into fresh situations, and fresh situations force practice. A shy person who must lead meetings learns scripts, learns timing, and slowly learns confidence. A disorganized person who becomes a caregiver learns systems because the cost of chaos becomes too high. Even a painful transition can reshape priorities, which reshapes behavior. The change can stick if the new environment keeps rewarding the new pattern. That is why New Year, New Me often fails, because the surroundings stay identical. Real change often follows real disruption. It is not only motivation. It is friction, support, and repeated opportunity, all pushing the nervous system to adapt. A short first impression can match months of observation surprisingly well. Humans are built to read other humans fast. Within minutes, we pick up cues from pacing, eye contact, voice rhythm, and how someone handles small uncertainty. Some traits are easier to see quickly. Extraversion often shows up in how readily someone engages. Conscientiousness can appear in punctuality and preparedness. Warmth can be heard in how someone responds to another person's turn to speak. This quick read is not perfect. It can be thrown off by nerves, culture, power dynamics, or a bad day. Still, first impressions can carry real signal because traits leak through micro-choices. How long do you pause? Do you interrupt? Do you laugh easily? Do you ask questions? Over time, you see the deeper layers, like values and coping styles. Yet the first snapshot can be closer to truth than we expect, which is both useful and sobering. Openness often predicts who enjoys abstract art, philosophy, and new ideas. It is the trait that leans toward possibility. People high in this dimension tend to feel curiosity before caution, and they often enjoy questions that do not have one neat answer. Give them a painting that looks like a storm of color. They may linger, searching for meaning, emotion, or pattern. Give them a thought experiment about identity or time. They may feel a thrill rather than frustration. This does not require being artistic. It can show up as love of puzzles, travel, new cuisines, or learning a strange skill for no practical reason. In conversation, it often appears as what-if thinking. It can also make someone more comfortable with ambiguity, which helps in creativity and in science. When openness is low, familiarity can feel safer and more satisfying, which is its own kind of wisdom. Conscientiousness is one of the best predictors of long-term health. The link is rarely about perfect willpower. It is about small choices that repeat without drama. Someone who plans ahead is more likely to book the checkup, refill the prescription, and notice early warning signs. Someone who follows through tends to keep routines that protect sleep, movement, and stress levels. Over years, those routines compound. Skipping one walk rarely matters. Skipping thousands does. This trait also shapes risk. A careful person is less likely to drive recklessly, ignore safety steps, or treat their body like it is indestructible. Even hygiene and food habits can be influenced, not through obsession, but through consistency. Of course, life can disrupt anyone. Still, conscientiousness often acts like a quiet guardrail. It nudges you back toward maintenance, which is what health usually demands most. Agreeableness shapes conflict style, from gentle repair to hard boundaries. When tension rises, some people reach for connection first. They soften their voice, look for common ground, and try to stitch the relationship back together before it tears. That impulse can make homes and workplaces feel safer. It can also create a trap. If someone values harmony too much, they may swallow resentment until it leaks out sideways. High agreeableness is not the same as being a pushover. Many agreeable people are skilled at setting firm limits without cruelty. They say no, and they still signal care. Lower agreeableness can look harsh, yet it can also look honest and direct. In some settings, that directness prevents long confusion. The fascinating part is how the same disagreement can become either a repair moment or a rupture, depending on how much warmth, patience, and bluntness each person brings into the room. Neuroticism tracks sensitivity to threat, not weakness or moral failure. Some minds are tuned like smoke alarms set to high. They notice risk quickly, and their bodies react fast. That can mean worry, tension, and a tendency to replay what went wrong. It can also mean spotting problems early. In a team, the person who anticipates failure points may prevent a disaster that everyone else strolls past. The cost is wear and tear. When the alarm keeps ringing, daily life can feel like a series of potential emergencies. This trait is shaped by biology and experience, and it rises under chronic stress. It falls when safety and coping skills increase. It also changes in how it expresses. One person becomes irritable. Another becomes self-critical. Another becomes a planner who tries to control every detail. Understanding neuroticism is not about judging character. It is about recognizing a nervous system style, then learning which environments and habits keep it from taking over. Extraversion includes reward-seeking, not just sociability and talkativeness. At its core, this trait is about how strongly you feel pulled toward potential payoff. That payoff might be social, like attention and belonging. It might be action-based, like starting projects, chasing goals, or saying yes before you have overthought it. Some extroverts love people but hate small talk. They come alive in shared purpose, like volunteering, sports, or building something with a team. Others are quiet and still deeply extroverted because they crave stimulation and forward motion. You can hear it in how they approach a blank weekend. It feels like an open door, not an empty room. The flip side is impatience with slow rewards. When the world is dull or isolating, extraversion can feel like a hunger. When the world offers connection and challenge, it can feel like a powerful engine that helps someone take risks others keep postponing. People high in conscientiousness tend to make fewer everyday risky mistakes. It shows up in moments so ordinary that nobody applauds them. Locking the door, checking the stove, backing up a file, reading the instructions before assembling the shelf. These tiny precautions prevent the kind of chaos that steals time and money. Conscientious people often build systems that catch errors early, like calendars, lists, or leaving keys in one place. It can look boring until you notice how much mental space it frees. They are not immune to accidents, and they can still be adventurous. They simply reduce preventable mishaps. In workplaces, this can mean fewer safety incidents and fewer forgotten details. At home, it can mean fewer frantic searches and fewer last-minute panics. The more interesting truth is that conscientiousness is partly teachable. You can borrow it from your future self by creating routines that do the remembering for you, even on tired days. High openness often correlates with creative hobbies and unconventional careers. This trait can make curiosity feel like a need, not a luxury. Many open people chase experiences the way others chase comfort. They might try ceramics, then coding, then salsa dancing, not because they cannot commit, but because learning itself is the reward. In work, that can lead toward roles with variety and invention, like design, research, writing, entrepreneurship, or jobs that blend fields. It can also show up inside conventional careers. A nurse who loves learning might specialize in a niche. A lawyer might become the person who solves unusual cases. Openness is also linked to tolerance for new viewpoints, which can make travel and cross-cultural friendships feel especially rich. The challenge is focus. When every door looks interesting, choosing one path can feel like loss. The skill becomes building a life where curiosity has a home and where novelty feeds growth instead of scattering it. High agreeableness can raise trust, yet sometimes invites being taken advantage of. Warmth is powerful social currency. People who listen well, forgive quickly, and assume good intent often create an atmosphere where others relax. That can deepen friendships and speed up teamwork. It can also attract the wrong kind of attention. Some people test for soft boundaries, and they push until they find a person who will not push back. Highly agreeable people may overgive, then feel confused when resentment arrives. The solution is not becoming cold. It is learning clear limits, and learning that discomfort is not the same as harm. Saying no can be an act of respect, because it keeps help honest. Another protection is choosing environments that reward fairness. In a healthy group, kindness is returned. In an unhealthy group, it is harvested. Agreeableness shines brightest when it is paired with self-respect, because then it becomes steady generosity rather than silent self-erasure. High neuroticism can sharpen vigilance, which can be useful in crises. In an emergency, the person who senses danger early may move first. They notice a strange smell, a change in mood, a detail that does not fit, and their body pushes them to respond. That responsiveness can save time, and time matters. Many caretakers, safety-focused workers, and protectors have some version of this trait. They are the ones who pack the backup charger, who check the route, who ask, "What is our plan if this goes wrong?" The cost is that the crisis mode can spill into normal life. When everything feels urgent, rest becomes difficult. The fascinating piece is learning to aim the spotlight. Vigilance is most helpful when it is directed at true threats, not at imagined ones. Tools like preparation, clear communication, and calming rituals can turn high neuroticism into a strength that activates when needed, then stands down when it is safe. Introversion and shyness are different, even though they often overlap. Shyness is about fear of social judgment. Introversion is about how you manage stimulation and energy. A shy person may crave company and still feel frozen when it arrives. An introvert may feel socially confident and still prefer fewer interactions because their mind needs space to recover. Picture someone who loves public speaking, then goes home and wants silence. That can be introversion without shyness. Picture someone who longs to join a group chat, then rereads every message before sending. That can be shyness without introversion. When the two overlap, it can be especially confusing. People assume they dislike others, when they may simply feel overloaded and wary at once. The helpful part is choosing the right solution. Shyness often improves with safe exposure and skill building. Introversion improves with pacing and permission. Once you separate them, you can stop fighting the wrong battle and start meeting the real need. Sensation-seeking is a trait that can pull people toward thrill and novelty. For some people, boredom is not neutral. It feels itchy, like a warning signal that life is slipping into grey. High sensation seekers chase intensity, which might mean travel, fast sports, scary movies, improvisation, or taking the lead in unpredictable situations. They often learn by doing, because experience lands more deeply than theory. This trait can be a gift in careers that demand calm under pressure, like emergency response, entrepreneurship, or performance. It can also carry risk when the search for stimulation outpaces judgment. The key is finding safe danger. Some people satisfy the need through controlled thrills, like climbing with training or racing with protective rules. Others channel it into creative risk, like trying bold art or building a new project. Sensation-seeking is not immaturity. It is a different appetite for intensity, and it shapes what feels like a life fully lived. Trait anxiety and fearfulness are related, yet they are not identical. Fear is the sharp response to a specific threat. It is the body saying, "Right now, something could hurt me." Trait anxiety is broader. It is the mind scanning the horizon for what could go wrong, even when the danger is distant or unclear. A person can be fearless in physical situations and still anxious about social rejection or failure. Another person can be calm about the future and still jump at sudden noises. That difference matters because it points to different triggers and different fixes. Fear responds well to safety and gradual exposure. Anxiety often responds to uncertainty management, like clear plans, realistic thinking, and learning to tolerate the unknown. Both can be shaped by temperament and by life experience. Both can be protective in the right dose. When either becomes too loud, it shrinks life. Understanding the difference helps you aim your tools, instead of treating all distress as the same emotion wearing different clothes. Empathy has multiple parts: feeling with others and understanding them. Some people catch emotions like a tune that gets stuck in the head. They feel another person's sadness in their own chest. That is emotional empathy, and it can create deep tenderness. It can also lead to overwhelm, especially in caregiving roles. Another form is cognitive empathy. That is the ability to grasp what someone else might be thinking, even if you do not share the feeling. A skilled negotiator might use it, and so might a good teacher. The most powerful empathy often blends both. You sense the feeling, and you also understand the perspective. Yet, the parts can separate. Someone may understand others well and still not care. Someone may feel others deeply and still misunderstand their motives. Learning empathy can involve curiosity, good questions, and patience with differences. It also involves boundaries, because constant emotional absorption can burn out the very people who care most. Self-control is partly a skill, not only a fixed trait. Some people imagine self-control as a single muscle. In reality, it often looks like smart design. You change the environment so you do not need constant resistance. You put the phone in another room. You prep food before hunger hits. You set reminders because memory fails under stress. Over time, these choices become automatic, which feels like strong willpower from the outside. Self-control also changes with sleep, stress, and emotional load. When you are exhausted, your brain values immediate comfort more strongly. That is not laziness. It is biology making a trade. The hopeful part is that skills can be practiced. Delaying a small urge trains the mind to tolerate discomfort without panic. Breaking big goals into tiny steps reduces the need for heroic effort. Self-control can grow through compassionate structure, not harsh self-punishment. It becomes less about grit and more about making the next good choice easy. Narcissism can look like confidence, yet it often hides fragile self-worth. On the surface, narcissistic behavior can seem like shining certainty. It can be charm, status-seeking, or constant comparison. Underneath, it is often a desperate need to protect an image. Praise feels like oxygen. Criticism can feel like an attack on survival, even when it is mild. That is why some people react with rage, dismissal, or blame shifting when challenged. They are not protecting a stable pride. They are guarding a shaky sense of value. Narcissism also comes in quieter forms. Some people play the victim of every story because it keeps attention focused on them. Others chase perfection because any flaw feels unbearable. None of this excuses harm. It does explain the pattern. Healthy confidence can admit mistakes and still feel okay. Narcissistic confidence often cannot. The antidote is a steadier self that does not depend on constant applause, and relationships that allow honesty without humiliation. Psychopathy is about callousness and impulsivity, not movie villain genius. Popular stories paint a cold mastermind. Real psychopathic traits often look messier. A person may feel little guilt, struggle to care about others' pain, and take risks without learning from consequences. Some are charming, because charm can be a tool. Many are not especially smart. The heart of it is reduced emotional response to suffering, combined with poor inhibition. That combination can produce cruelty, scams, or reckless harm. Yet psychopathy is also a spectrum, and traits can appear in milder forms without criminal behavior. The most important point is that it is not the same as being tough or logical. It is a pattern of shallow emotional depth in certain areas, especially remorse and empathy. It also does not mean someone is unstoppable. Accountability, clear boundaries, and strong systems protect communities. Understanding the trait helps people recognize manipulation, avoid self-blame, and take warning signs seriously. Machiavellianism describes strategic manipulation, not simply being smart or careful. This trait is about treating relationships like games of leverage. A Machiavellian person often plans several moves ahead, not to build trust, but to control outcomes. They may flatter, withhold information, or create alliances that benefit them most. They often believe other people are just as selfish, which can make kindness look naive. Unlike impulsive harm, this style is calculated. It can show up in workplaces through credit stealing or subtle sabotage. It can show up in friendships through gossip used as currency. What makes it so difficult is the mask. Many Machiavellian people appear reasonable, even helpful, until you notice a pattern of benefit always flowing one way. The defense is clarity. Keep agreements in writing. Watch what people do, not what they promise. Give trust in layers, and do not hand someone power without accountability. Understanding this trait does not make you cynical. It makes you harder to play. The dark triad traits overlap, yet they predict different social harms. They are often grouped together because they share a core of self-focus, coldness, and willingness to use others. Still, each has its own flavor. Narcissism craves admiration and status. Machiavellianism craves control through strategy. Psychopathy craves stimulation and has low remorse. In real life, a narcissist may dominate conversations and demand praise. A Machiavellian may quietly shape the room to serve them, while appearing cooperative. A more psychopathic person may take reckless risks that damage others, then shrug at the fallout. People can show bits of one without the others, and that changes what to watch for. The reason this matters is practical. Different patterns call for different boundaries. With narcissism, limit attention as a reward. With Machiavellianism, protect information and insist on transparency. With psychopathy, prioritize safety and firm consequences. Names are not meant to label people as monsters. They are meant to describe patterns, so communities can respond wisely. Humility can be measured, and it predicts better teamwork and learning. Humility is not self-hatred. It is accurate self-knowledge paired with openness to being wrong. A humble person can say, "I do not know," without collapsing. They can hear feedback without turning it into a personal war. That makes them easier to coach, and it makes them safer to collaborate with. In groups, humility reduces status battles because the goal becomes the work, not the ego. It also makes learning faster. If you believe you already have the answer, you stop searching. If you accept you might be mistaken, you stay curious. Humility also has a social effect. People share ideas more freely when they do not fear being ridiculed. That creates a feedback-rich environment where small mistakes are caught early. You can cultivate humility through habits. Ask better questions. Credit others clearly. Treat correction as information, not humiliation. In the long run, humility can look like quiet strength because it keeps you growing. Optimism predicts persistence, even when results arrive slowly and imperfectly. Optimism is not pretending everything is fine. It is the expectation that effort can matter. That expectation changes how you interpret setbacks. A pessimistic mind may see failure as proof of inability. An optimistic mind is more likely to see it as data or as a temporary detour. That difference changes behavior. The optimist returns to the task. They send the next application. They practice again. They try another approach. Over time, persistence becomes advantage. This is why optimism connects to achievement and also to resilience after stress. There is a dark side, though. Unrealistic optimism can lead to careless risk, like ignoring warning signs. The healthiest form is grounded optimism. You acknowledge what is hard, and you still believe change is possible. You can build it by remembering past wins, by setting small goals you can actually complete, and by surrounding yourself with people who turn problems into plans. Optimism is a story your brain tells. With practice, it can become a story that helps you keep going. The Myers-Briggs types feel intuitive, yet they are debated scientifically. People love it because it reads like a story. You see yourself in a few crisp letters, and suddenly your habits feel named. The debate begins with how it measures people. The system sorts you into categories, even when your score sits near the middle. On a different week, with different stress, you can tip into the neighboring box. Many researchers prefer trait scales instead, because they capture degrees and nuance. Another concern is prediction. A tool earns scientific trust when it reliably forecasts behavior across settings, not just self-recognition in the moment. Still, the appeal is real. Humans remember characters better than coordinates. A type can become a starting mirror that sparks reflection and better conversations. The scientific question is not whether it feels meaningful. The question is whether its structure matches how personality truly varies in nature. MBTI categories can change over time, even when traits feel steady. Imagine standing on a shoreline. The tide moves a little, yet the beach still feels like the same place. Many people sit close to the middle on one or more MBTI scales. That means small shifts in mood, sleep, confidence, or context can flip a result. A new job can push you toward more outward behavior. A stressful month can push you toward more cautious decision-making. Even learning can matter. Once you understand the questions, you may answer with a clearer sense of your typical pattern. This can be unsettling because we want a type to feel like identity. The better way to hold it is as a snapshot. It is a description of what feels natural lately and what you tend to prefer. If your letters change, it does not mean you were lying before. It means you are a living system. The Big Five uses dimensions because people rarely fit clean boxes. Think of a dimmer switch, not a light that is only on or off. You might be organized at work, yet messy at home. You might be outgoing with friends, yet quiet with strangers. A dimensional model allows that complexity because it measures where you fall along several continua. It also helps explain why two people who both call themselves introverts can look nothing alike. One may be calm and steady. Another may be anxious and self-protective. With dimensions, you can describe both without forcing them into one type label. This approach is also useful for change. If you improve a habit, your position can shift gradually, not suddenly. That feels more realistic because personality often moves in inches. The Big Five does not try to turn you into a category. It tries to map your tendencies with room for nuance. Temperament shows up early, long before language and social training. Before a child can explain anything, their nervous system is already offering clues. Some infants settle quickly after a startle. Others stay activated longer, and they need more soothing. Some reach toward novelty with bright attention. Others watch from a distance until the situation feels familiar. These early patterns are not chosen, and they are not learned from instructions. They are more like default settings for arousal and attention. Over time, caregivers and environments shape how those defaults develop. A reactive child can learn calming strategies and become thoughtfully cautious. A highly energetic child can learn structure and become productively driven. Temperament is not destiny, and it is not character. It is the raw material personality is built from. Seeing temperament early can help adults respond with better fit. It can replace shame with understanding, and it can guide support before problems harden into habits. Babies differ in reactivity, which can echo into later personality. Some babies respond to a new sound with a brief blink, then relax. Others flush, cry, or startle intensely, and their bodies take longer to return to baseline. This difference can shape what the child experiences. A highly reactive baby may avoid loud gatherings, which reduces practice with novelty. A less reactive baby may explore more, which builds confidence through repetition. Over years, those tiny differences can echo into patterns we later call cautious, adventurous, sensitive, or steady. The key is that reactivity is not a flaw. It can bring strengths. Sensitive infants may become adults who notice subtle cues, read emotions well, and anticipate problems early. The challenge appears when the world is too intense, or when adults misread sensitivity as stubbornness. When caregivers match the child's needs with patience and predictable comfort, reactivity can become a finely tuned instrument instead of a constant alarm. Some children are orchids, thriving in the right environment. An orchid child can look difficult in harsh conditions and surprisingly brilliant in supportive ones. With too much chaos, criticism, or unpredictability, they may become anxious, withdrawn, or explosive. With warmth, structure, and encouragement, the same child can show striking empathy, creativity, and self-control. The idea is not that they are fragile by choice. It is that they are highly responsive to context, like a system that picks up every signal. These children often notice tone, fairness, and tension more quickly than others. That sensitivity can be exhausting for adults who expect one approach to fit every child. It can also be a gift. If you provide consistent routines, clear expectations, and emotional safety, an orchid child may bloom in ways that feel almost dramatic. The lesson is hopeful. When temperament is matched with the right environment, a problem child can become a thriving one. Some children are dandelions, steady across many environments and stresses. A dandelion child tends to grow in many kinds of soil. They may handle change with fewer spikes in distress, and they may recover faster after setbacks. That does not mean they never suffer. It means their baseline is often more resilient to everyday turbulence. In a noisy classroom, they can still focus. In a family under strain, they may still find moments of play. This steadiness can hide needs, because adults assume they are fine. Dandelion children may be overlooked for support, since they do not signal as loudly. They also may be asked to cope with more than is fair, because they appear capable. The fascinating truth is that resilience is a trait pattern, not a moral badge. A dandelion child can still be deeply sensitive inside. They simply show it differently, and they may need permission to ask for help when the soil becomes truly harsh. Personality grows through gene and environment partnership, not simple destiny. Genes are not a set of commands. They are more like tendencies in a system that responds to experience. A person might inherit a high drive for novelty, but whether that becomes creativity or chaos depends on what their life reinforces. Environments also do not act alone. People shape their environments by the choices their traits make more likely. A social person seeks groups, and groups offer more social practice. A cautious person seeks predictability, and predictability rewards planning. Over time, these loops strengthen. This is why personality development is not a one-way street. Biology influences which experiences you seek. Experience influences how biology expresses through habits, confidence, and coping. Even the same stressor can shape two people differently because their starting sensitivities differ. Seeing personality this way reduces blame and reduces fatalism. You are not blank clay, and you are not trapped by wiring. You are a living partnership between predisposition and practice. Birth order effects are smaller than popular stories often claim. The stories are irresistible. Firstborns are leaders. Middle children are negotiators. Youngest children are charming rebels. In real research, the differences are often subtle, and they can vanish when you account for family size, socioeconomic factors, and how parents change over time. One reason is that siblings do not share a single childhood. The family's money, stress, and parenting skill can shift between births. Another reason is that children also shape the role they are given. A bold younger sibling may become the loud one, even if they were born first in a different family. Birth order can still matter in specific households, especially when parents strongly compare children or assign fixed roles. The takeaway is freeing. If you feel trapped by a birth order story, you do not need to obey it. Your temperament, your environment, and your choices usually carry more weight than your position in the lineup. Twins help researchers separate genetic influence from family environment influence. Twin studies are like a natural experiment that would be unethical to design on purpose. Identical twins share nearly all their genetic variation, while fraternal twins share about half on average. If identical twins resemble each other more on a trait than fraternal twins do, it suggests genetic influence. Researchers also look at how similar twins are when they share a home, and when life takes them into different settings. The method has limits. Twins may be treated more similarly than other siblings, and that can inflate resemblance. Modern studies often combine twin data with adoption research, large family samples, and DNA-based methods to cross-check results. The real value is not a single number. It is a clearer picture of where differences come from. Twin research reminds us that nature and nurture are not enemies. They are intertwined threads, and twins help untangle part of the knot. Your personality shifts slightly across the day, following energy and mood. You are not the same person at sunrise and at midnight. When you are rested, your patience can widen and your curiosity can feel easier. When you are hungry or depleted, irritability can rise, and empathy can shrink. Even without dramatic mood swings, tiny changes in energy shift what you do. In the morning, some people feel brave enough to tackle hard tasks. Later, they become more comfort-seeking and less flexible. This daily motion can fool you into thinking your personality is inconsistent. It is often your state changing, not your identity. The fascinating part is that you can learn your own rhythm. If you know you are more impulsive late at night, you can delay big purchases. If you know you are calmer after a walk, you can schedule tough conversations then. Daily shifts are not noise. They are a pattern, and patterns can be used. People often act more extroverted at work than at home. Work creates roles, and roles pull behavior out of you. A quiet person may lead meetings because their job demands it. A talkative person may become focused and restrained because the workplace rewards precision. Many people also adopt a professional self that is slightly more upbeat, more assertive, or more socially responsive than their private baseline. This is not fake. It is a skillful adaptation to a setting with stakes. The interesting question is what happens afterward. Some people feel energized by the performance and carry it into the evening. Others feel drained and need silence to recover. This difference can cause misunderstandings in relationships. A partner may think, "You can talk all day at work, so why not at dinner?" The answer is often cost. Social output has a price, and people pay it differently. Recognizing this can reduce guilt and reduce resentment. It can also help you plan recovery the way athletes plan rest. Situations matter, and strong situations can override trait differences. Put almost anyone in a strict exam room, and you will see similar behavior. Voices lower. Movement slows. People follow rules because the situation is powerful. In a fire drill, even playful people become focused. In a funeral, even energetic people become subdued. Psychologists call these strong situations, and they can compress personality differences. Weak situations do the opposite. At a casual party, people choose where to stand, who to speak to, and how long to stay. Traits have room to show. This matters because we often judge people without noticing the strength of the situation. We call someone cold when the setting required distance. We call someone timid when the setting punished risk. If you want to understand someone's personality, look across contexts. Ask what the environment allowed and what it demanded. Then the person becomes clearer and the story becomes kinder. You have a personality signature, how you vary across specific contexts. Some people are consistently calm, and others are consistently intense. Many people are neither. They have a pattern. You might be highly confident with friends and hesitant with authority. You might be generous in time and protective with money. You might be orderly in shared spaces and chaotic in private. This signature is like a personal map of triggers and comforts. It can explain why you feel inconsistent, even when you are not. It also gives you leverage. If you know you become sarcastic when you feel cornered, you can learn to pause earlier. If you know you become brave when you have a plan, you can build a plan before you need courage. Personality signatures also affect relationships. Someone may love your playful side and rarely see your anxious side until a certain situation appears. When you understand your signature, you can communicate it. That turns surprise into understanding, and it turns conflict into problem solving. Many people become more agreeable as they age into adulthood. As life moves on, many people learn that relationships are not a side quest. They are the main world. Living with partners, co-workers, and neighbors teaches small lessons. Repair matters more than being right. Listening is often faster than fighting. People also gain practice in reading others, which can reduce misinterpretation. Agreeableness can grow as empathy grows, and as impulsive reactions soften. Another reason is responsibility. When your choices affect children, teams, or communities, harshness can feel costly. Still, this is not guaranteed. Bitter experiences can harden someone, and unsafe environments can reward suspicion. The trend is a general one, not a promise. The hopeful part is that agreeableness is not only a trait, it is also a set of skills, like taking another viewpoint and offering a clean apology. Many adults learn those skills through mistakes and then become easier to live with. That is a quiet kind of development. Many people become more conscientious with age, especially after commitments. Commitments create structure, and structure trains follow through. When you sign a lease, take a job with real deadlines, or care for someone who depends on you, you cannot drift the way you could at 16. Bills arrive. Mornings arrive. Other people count on you. Over time, the brain learns that planning reduces pain. You start using calendars, routines, and small systems. Those systems make you feel capable, and capability reinforces the behavior. Conscientiousness also grows when goals become personal. Studying for your own career feels different from studying because someone told you to. The fascinating detail is that many people do not feel more conscientious. They feel more realistic. They stop expecting motivation to appear like magic, and they build habits that work even when motivation is low. This shift can happen after marriage, after a first serious job, or after a wake-up call that makes time feel precious. Neuroticism often declines with age, yet stress can reverse it. Many adults report fewer emotional spikes as they get older. Part of that is experience. You have seen storms before, so you do not interpret every cloud as disaster. You also learn which worries are useful and which ones are noise. Another part is selection. People often shape their lives to fit their needs, choosing friends, routines, and environments that feel safer. That can lower chronic alarm. Still, stress can push the other way. A health scare, financial strain, caregiving overload, or constant uncertainty can revive old patterns of worry and irritability. This is not personal failure. It is the nervous system responding to pressure. The key is to notice what changed. When stress rises, the mind may start scanning for threats again, and sleep may suffer. Restoring stability can bring the trait expression back down. This is one reason emotional skills matter. They do not just improve mood. They protect your long-term baseline. Extraversion changes by facet. Social warmth and dominance can diverge. Many people imagine extraversion as one thing, but it has different flavors. One flavor is warmth. That is friendliness, laughter, and easy connection. Another flavor is assertiveness, which is about taking charge, speaking up, and influencing direction. These do not always travel together. A person can be affectionate and shy about leadership. Another can be commanding in meetings and distant in casual conversation. Over time, life can train one facet more than the other. A manager role might increase assertiveness, even if warmth stays stable. A close community might increase warmth, even if a person avoids spotlight roles. This difference helps explain why someone can seem extroverted in one sense and introverted in another. It also helps people stop comparing themselves unfairly. You do not need to be the loudest voice to be socially engaged. You can be warm, present, and connective without chasing dominance. Understanding facets gives language to styles that are often misunderstood. Openness can dip with routine, yet it can revive with learning. When life becomes repetitive, curiosity can go quiet. The brain becomes efficient. It follows known routes, makes familiar meals, and uses the same solutions. That efficiency is not bad. It keeps you functioning. The problem is that it can shrink the sense of wonder, and wonder is a kind of fuel. Openness often returns when people reintroduce novelty in manageable doses. A new class, a museum visit, a different genre of book, or even a conversation with someone outside your usual circle can reopen the door. Learning is especially powerful because it changes what you notice. Once you learn a little about birds, you start seeing them everywhere. Once you learn a little about space, the night sky becomes crowded with meaning. This is why openness is not only a personality trait, it is also a practice. You can create conditions that invite curiosity back, and then watch your mind start reaching outward again. Major trauma can reshape traits, sometimes toward resilience, and sometimes toward fear. After a serious shock, the mind may redraw its map of safety. Some people become more vigilant, more withdrawn, or more irritable because the world now feels unpredictable. Others report a different change. They become clearer about priorities, less bothered by small slights, and more appreciative of ordinary days. Both pathways can happen, and they can even alternate across years. What matters is that trauma is not just a memory. It can alter sleep, attention, startle response, and trust. Those changes look like personality from the outside because they shape daily behavior. Recovery is not about erasing what happened. It is about rebuilding a sense of control and meaning. Supportive relationships, stable routines, and effective therapy can reduce fear-based patterns. In some cases, people also discover strengths they did not know they had, like courage, empathy, and persistence. Trauma can bend a life. It does not have to define it. Social media can amplify traits, rewarding extremes of expression and identity. Platforms are built around attention, and attention often goes to the most vivid version of a person. If you are naturally bold, the online world can reward bigger statements, faster takes, and sharper certainty. If you are naturally anxious, the endless stream of comparison can feed rumination and self-doubt. Even quieter traits can be pushed outward. A mildly competitive person may start tracking likes like a scoreboard. A mildly agreeable person may start posting only what avoids conflict until their real opinions disappear. Over time, the reward system trains behavior. You learn what gets applause, what gets ignored, and what gets attacked. That feedback can make your personality feel louder than it is offline. The strange part is that it can happen without you noticing. You are not choosing a new self. You are adapting to a new environment that pays invisibility. Online anonymity can reveal traits that stay hidden in polite settings. When a name and face disappear, social cost changes. Some people become surprisingly kind. They donate advice, comfort strangers, and tell truths they were too shy to say aloud. Others reveal hostility, cruelty, or delight in disruption. The same person can even swing between the two, depending on mood and group norms. Anonymity also reduces the pressure to manage impressions. A person who feels awkward in real time may write with clarity and humor online because they can pause, edit, and control timing. Someone who craves dominance may become more aggressive because they no longer fear consequences. It is tempting to say anonymity shows the real personality. It is more accurate to say it uncovers a range. Remove a few breaks, add a few freedoms, and different motives step forward. That is why online spaces can feel like laboratories of human behavior. Culture shapes which traits are praised, punished, or quietly ignored. A trait is not only a tendency inside you, it is also a reaction from the people around you. In one culture, speaking up quickly is treated as confidence. In another, it is treated as disrespect. In one setting, emotional restraint is admired. In another, it is seen as coldness. These values shape what people practice, because practice is rewarded. A naturally outgoing child may be celebrated in a classroom built for discussion, and that child becomes even more outgoing. The same child might be corrected in a classroom built for deference, and they learn to hold back. Over years, the trait does not vanish, but its expression changes. Culture can also decide which traits become identities. Some societies romanticize independence. Others romanticize harmony. When you learn the local rules, you learn which parts of yourself to show and when. In some cultures, modesty changes how personality questionnaires are answered. Personality tests often ask you to rate statements like, "I am a leader," or "I am very talented." In cultures where modesty is a moral value, endorsing those statements can feel rude, even if they are true. People may choose middle options, or they may downplay strengths to avoid seeming arrogant. In other cultures, self-promotion is expected, and refusing praise can be seen as weakness. This matters because the same person might look less confident on paper, simply because they follow a different social script. It also affects comparisons between countries. A group can seem less extroverted or less assertive, when the real difference is how people talk about themselves. Researchers try to adjust for this by using different question styles, by adding observer ratings, or by analyzing response patterns. The deeper lesson is simple. Tests do not float above culture. They pass through it like light through tinted glass. Personality tests can be biased by translation choices and local norms. A single word can tilt an answer. Assertive might translate as confident in one language and pushy in another. Anxious might carry shame in one place and medical neutrality in another. Even the idea of being yourself is not universal. In some cultures, the self is defined through roles and relationships, not through private preferences. That makes certain questions feel odd or even meaningless. Local norms also change what counts as a trait. Talks a lot might mean friendly in one setting. It might mean rude in another. When that happens, the same behavior is judged differently, and the questionnaire picks up judgment instead of temperament. Good measurement tries to solve this through careful translation, back translation, and local validation studies. Still, bias can sneak in through tiny cracks. It is a reminder that personality science is not only about people, it is also about language, meaning, and context. Even handwriting and emoji habits correlate weakly with certain traits. These clues are never a diagnosis. Still, patterns can appear in small habits. Some people use many emojis to soften tone and signal friendliness, and that can align with warmth or social sensitivity. Others use few emojis and short messages, and that can align with directness or low need for reassurance. Handwriting can show similar hints. A highly controlled script can reflect care and patience in motor habits. A looser style can reflect speed and spontaneity. The key word is weakly. These signals are noisy. Culture, age, job demands, and even phone settings can change them. Yet it is fascinating that personality leaks into micro-choices at all. Humans build style without trying. We choose a punctuation rhythm, a reply speed, and a comfort level with expressive symbols. When you look closely, you see that personality is not only in big life decisions, it is also in the tiny fingerprints we leave on daily communication. Music preferences can hint at traits, but they never tell the whole story. Music is a private world that people carry into the public. Some listeners chase complexity, like jazz improvisation or layered electronic sound, because their minds enjoy novelty and pattern. Others crave familiarity, like a favorite playlist that feels like home, because predictability can soothe stress. Lyrics matter too. Some people want stories and emotions. Others want rhythm and energy. These preferences can connect to traits, but they are not a shortcut to knowing someone. A cautious person can love heavy metal because it offers safe intensity. A calm person can love sad songs because they enjoy emotional depth without being overwhelmed. Identity also plays a role. Teenagers often use music to find belonging. Adults often use it to regulate mood. The most interesting use of music is as a window into needs. When someone presses play, they might be seeking focus, comfort, confidence, grief, or joy. The genre is less important than the purpose. Humor style differs by trait, from playful bonding to sharp teasing. Humor is not one skill. It is a toolkit. Some people use jokes to connect, and they turn awkward moments into shared relief. That affiliative style often fits warmth and social ease. Some people use self-deprecating humor. It can be charming, but it can also hide insecurity if it becomes constant. Some use aggressive humor, which means teasing, sarcasm, or cutting remarks that establish status. That can land as funny in certain groups and cruel in others. There is also coping humor, where people use wit to survive stress, like finding a small laugh during a hard time. Traits shape which tool feels natural. An agreeable person may avoid jokes that wound. A bold person may take bigger comedic risks. A sensitive person may read the room carefully before making a joke. Humor is one of the fastest ways to reveal personality because it shows what you notice, what you value, and how much emotional risk you tolerate in public. People high in openness often enjoy complex music more often. Complexity can feel like a puzzle your ears get to solve. A song with shifting rhythms, unexpected chords, or layered textures gives the brain more to explore. People who enjoy novelty often find that rewarding rather than tiring. They may listen to music from unfamiliar cultures, or they may like genres that break rules because surprise feels like discovery. This does not mean all open people love the same artists. It means they are more willing to try and more willing to sit with uncertainty until a pattern emerges. The payoff can be a deeper listening habit. You start noticing details, like how a bass line answers a melody, or how a drum pattern changes mood. It is also a reminder that taste is a skill. The more you listen, the more you hear. For someone high in openness, that learning curve can be its own pleasure. Music becomes less like background and more like a landscape. People high in agreeableness tend to use warmer, more affiliative language. In conversation, agreeableness often shows up as verbal comfort. People use phrases that invite cooperation, like, "What do you think?" or "That makes sense." They may soften disagreement with respect because keeping the relationship intact matters. They also tend to offer more verbal support, like acknowledging effort and expressing gratitude. This can make them easy to talk to, and it can make conflict feel less threatening. The trade-off is that warmth can blur clarity. If someone avoids direct statements, others may miss their real boundaries. Another fascinating detail is that agreeable language can be strategic without being manipulative. It can be a way to keep the room calm, so a hard topic can be addressed without triggering defensiveness. In group settings, This style can prevent small friction from turning into a fight. It is one reason agreeable people often become informal peacemakers. They lower the temperature, and the conversation can keep moving. Personality predicts who volunteers, who votes, and who joins groups. Civic life is not only about opinions, it is also about habits and motives. A conscientious person may vote because it feels like a duty, the same way paying a bill feels like a duty. An extrovert may join a local group because social energy makes participation enjoyable. An agreeable person may volunteer because helping feels emotionally rewarding and because they dislike seeing others struggle. Openness can pull people toward causes that involve change, learning, or unfamiliar communities. Neuroticism can also play a role, because worry about the future can motivate engagement, or it can lead to withdrawal if politics feels overwhelming. These patterns are not destiny, and context matters. Still, personality can act like a doorway. It influences which forms of participation feel natural, and which ones feel draining. That is why the same community event can feel inspiring to one person and exhausting to another. Understanding this can help organizations recruit better, and it can help individuals find a civic role that fits. Extraversion often predicts leadership emergence, even before real competence is known. In many groups, the first person to speak becomes the person others follow. When someone seems confident, people assume they are capable, even when evidence is thin. Extroverts are more likely to speak early, to propose a plan, and to tolerate attention. That can make them pop as leaders, especially in new groups where nobody knows each other yet. The risk is obvious. Visibility is not the same as wisdom. Some quieter people have deeper insight, but they do not advertise it. Over time, good groups learn to separate presence from performance. They create structures where ideas are evaluated, not just voices. Still, the first stage often favors extraversion because humans are wired to treat confident signals as safety cues. This is why leadership development is not only about skill. It is also about perception. If you want better leaders, you have to design environments that make competence visible, not just charisma. Conscientiousness predicts job performance across many roles and industries. It is the trait of reliability. Many jobs, from surgery to software to teaching, reward the same invisible behaviors. Showing up on time, following through on commitments, checking your work, finishing what you start. These do not sound glamorous, but they are the scaffolding that keeps everything else standing. Conscientious people also tend to manage details that others forget, like documenting decisions or preparing before a meeting. That reduces errors and reduces stress for the whole team. This does not mean they are always the most creative or the most inspiring. It means their work is often dependable. In chaotic environments, conscientiousness can feel like a superpower because it creates order without needing constant supervision. The interesting part is that it benefits co-workers too. When one person is consistent, others can plan around them. That stability becomes a kind of trust, and trust is a hidden currency in every workplace. Agreeableness predicts customer satisfaction because warmth shapes service moments. Most customers remember how they felt, not every detail of what happened. A warm interaction can turn a problem into a story of relief. Agreeable people are more likely to listen without interrupting, to validate frustration, and to avoid making the customer feel foolish. That reduces conflict and increases trust. In service settings, small phrases matter. I can see why that's annoying can change the emotional direction of the conversation. Warmth also helps in recovery. When something goes wrong, people forgive more easily if they feel respected. Of course, agreeableness can be exploited. If a workplace demands endless cheer, staff can burn out. The best version of agreeableness in service is respectful firmness. You can be kind while holding policy. You can say no without contempt. That balance protects the worker and protects the customer experience. It is fascinating that satisfaction often rises not from perfection, but from human connection delivered under pressure. Openness predicts learning speed in changing jobs and unfamiliar tasks. When the rules change, some people tighten up. Others lean in. Openness often brings a willingness to experiment, and experimentation is how you learn fast. A person high in openness might click through a new software tool without fear of looking silly. They might ask unusual questions, which reveals hidden assumptions. They also tend to enjoy concepts, so they learn not only steps, but reasons. That makes skills transferable because they understand the logic underneath. This trait also helps with unlearning. In a changing job, you must drop old habits that no longer work. Openness makes that less painful because novelty feels less like threat. It does not guarantee mastery. Practice still matters. Still, openness can make the practice easier to begin and easier to repeat. In a world where careers shift and tools update constantly, this becomes valuable. It is not only creativity, it is adaptability. Neuroticism can predict burnout risk, especially without supportive workplaces. Burnout is not only workload. It is also how the workload lands in your nervous system. People high in neuroticism often experience stress more intensely, and they may replay problems after hours. They can also be highly conscientious, which creates a dangerous loop. They care deeply, they worry deeply, and they cannot switch off. In a supportive workplace, this sensitivity can be managed. Clear expectations, fair feedback, and realistic deadlines reduce chronic alarm. In an unsupportive workplace, the trait becomes fuel for exhaustion. Ambiguity feels like danger. Harsh criticism feels personal. Constant urgency feels like proof that rest is irresponsible. Over time, sleep suffers, health suffers, and cynicism grows. The important point is that burnout is not a character flaw. It is a mismatch between demands and recovery, filtered through a temperament that detects threat quickly. Solutions involve boundaries and systems, not only being tougher. When the environment improves, many people recover faster than they expect. Trait combinations matter because one trait can buffer another. Traits are not isolated knobs. They interact like ingredients in a recipe. High extraversion can soften the loneliness that comes with stress because social connection is easier to access. High conscientiousness can protect a spontaneous person from chaos because routines catch mistakes. High openness can help a cautious person reinterpret uncertainty as learning. High agreeableness can help a blunt person repair conflict quickly. The reverse also happens. A protective trait can become a problem if it is paired with the wrong partner. A very agreeable person without boundaries can be overwhelmed by a demanding environment. A highly open person without planning can start many projects and finish few. This is why real personality understanding feels personal. It asks, which traits do you have together? It also explains why advice does not fit everyone. Be more spontaneous can help one person and harm another. The right advice depends on the mix. When you learn your mix, you can build a life that supports it. High conscientiousness and high neuroticism can create perfectionistic overwork. This combination can feel like being chased by a checklist. Conscientiousness brings high standards and a drive to finish. Neuroticism brings fear of consequences, fear of mistakes, and fear of disappointing others. Put them together, and tasks can become loaded with emotion. A simple email feels like a test of worth. A small error feels like a catastrophe. The person works harder, not for joy, but for relief. They may double-check, redo, and stay late, because stopping feels unsafe. From the outside, it can look like admirable dedication. Inside, it can feel like constant pressure. The tricky part is that perfectionism is sometimes rewarded, at least at first. People praise the output, and the person learns to tie identity to performance. A turning point often comes when the body refuses, through exhaustion or illness. Recovery involves learning a new rule. Good enough is not failure. It is sustainability. It also involves building trust that mistakes can be repaired, and that value does not disappear when work is imperfect. Extraversion and agreeableness together often predict social popularity. Popularity is not only about being seen. It is about how people feel after being with you. Extraversion helps because it increases contact. You show up, you start conversations. You invite people in. Agreeableness helps because it makes those interactions safe. You listen, you share credit, and you avoid unnecessary cruelty. Together, these traits create a person who is both present and pleasant to be around. They remember names, they respond quickly, and they make others feel included. In groups, they often become the social glue, the one who keeps the mood light while still being respectful. This does not mean they are always the deepest friend. Popularity and closeness are different. Still, the combo tends to build a wide network, and networks bring opportunity. The caution is overcommitment. When you are both social and accommodating, it is easy to say yes too often. Maintaining popularity can become a job. The healthiest version includes boundaries, so connection stays enjoyable instead of draining. Openness and conscientiousness together often predict disciplined creativity. Creativity needs ideas, and it also needs completion. Openness supplies the ideas. It pulls in new inputs, new combinations, and new angles. Conscientiousness supplies the structure. It turns inspiration into a schedule, a draft, a prototype, and a finished product. Without openness, work can become rigid. Without conscientiousness, creativity can become a pile of half-started attempts. Together, they form a rare balance. You see possibilities, and you follow through. This combination shows up in artists who practice daily, in scientists who design careful experiments, and in entrepreneurs who keep refining a product instead of abandoning it. It also helps with frustration. When the first version is bad, conscientiousness keeps you at the desk. When the problem feels stuck, openness offers another perspective. The result is not only talent, it is a repeatable process. Disciplined creativity is what allows people to produce work that looks like magic to outsiders, even though it was built through routine. Attachment style overlaps with personality, but they are not the same. One describes how you tend to bond. The other describes how you tend to behave across life. Attachment style is shaped early by repeated experiences of comfort, availability, and repair. It can make closeness feel safe, or it can make closeness feel risky. Personality traits can color that style. A highly anxious person may notice distance faster. A highly agreeable person may chase harmony. Still, attachment is specifically about what happens when love and security are on the line. You can be outgoing and still avoid deep dependence. You can be quiet and still feel steady in intimacy. This is why two people who seem similar in everyday life can react very differently when a text goes unanswered. Attachment is also more flexible than people think. New relationships can reshape it because the nervous system learns from repeated evidence. Personality is your general climate. Attachment is your relationship weather. Couples often match in values more than they match in traits. Traits are style. Values are direction. Two partners can have very different energy levels and still build a peaceful life if they agree on what matters. They may share priorities like honesty, family, curiosity, faith, kindness, or ambition. Those shared values act like a compass when conflict appears, because both people want to head toward the same kind of future. Trait mismatch can be manageable with good design. One partner loves crowds. The other loves quiet. If both value respect, they can plan weekends that include both. Value mismatch is harder because it turns every choice into a tug of war. If one person values adventure and the other values stability, even a holiday can feel like a moral debate. The most surprising part is that values can be invisible early on. Chemistry is loud. Values whisper. Over time, the whisper becomes the foundation. Similarity can feel safe, yet difference can fuel growth. When someone thinks like you, it feels like rest. You do not have to translate your motives. You laugh at the same things, and you agree on what is normal. That safety can reduce friction and lower stress. Difference brings a different gift. It can expand your map of what is possible. A cautious person can learn courage by watching someone take healthy risks. A spontaneous person can learn stability by watching someone plan. Difference can also create conflict because it reveals assumptions you never knew you had. The key is whether the difference is paired with respect. With respect, contrast becomes education. Without respect, contrast becomes contempt. Many strong relationships learn to treat difference as information, not as an insult. You can say, "That is not my instinct." You can also say, "Show me how you see it." Growth often begins there. High neuroticism can strain relationships unless partners practice reassurance skills. When a person is sensitive to threat, small signals can feel enormous. A delayed reply can become a story of rejection. A short tone can become a warning of abandonment. The resulting behavior often looks like checking, testing, or seeking repeated confirmation. The partner may feel accused, even when no accusation was intended. This is where reassurance skills matter. The goal is not constant soothing. The goal is clear repair. A partner can name care directly, and they can offer predictable check-ins. The sensitive partner can learn to ask for reassurance without blame, and they can learn to separate feelings from facts. Both can also learn timing. Hard conversations land better when bodies are calm. When these skills are practiced, neuroticism does not have to ruin intimacy. It can become a signal that the relationship needs clarity and safety. Without the skills, the same sensitivity can turn love into a cycle of alarms. High agreeableness can reduce conflict, yet it can hide unmet needs. Agreeable people often keep the peace by smoothing rough moments. They apologize quickly, compromise easily, and avoid escalating tone. That can make a relationship feel calm. It can also make it hard to know what is real. If someone always says, "It's fine," their partner may believe them. Meanwhile, the agreeable person may be quietly collecting disappointments. Eventually, the hidden pile can topple. The blow-up feels sudden, but it was built slowly. The remedy is learning honest expression early. It can be simple. "I want a night in. I need more affection." that joke stung. When needs are spoken clearly, conflict becomes smaller and more useful. It becomes a steering wheel instead of a crash. Agreeableness works best when it includes self-respect. Kindness without truth can become a mask. Kindness with truth becomes trust. Extroverts often recharge through shared activity, not only conversation. Many extroverts are not chasing noise. They are chasing aliveness. That aliveness can come from doing something with people, even if nobody talks much. Think of a hike with friends, a busy kitchen making dinner, a team sport, or a volunteer shift with a shared goal. The body gets movement. The mind gets stimulation. The social brain gets belonging. Conversation is only one channel. Shared activity offers rhythm, purpose, and a feeling of being part of something larger than your own thoughts. This is why some extroverts dislike sitting and talking for hours. They prefer a project, a game, or a plan. It also explains why isolation can hit them hard. Alone time can be restful, but too much can flatten motivation. For many extroverts, energy returns when they re-enter the stream of people and action. It is less about talking. It is about participating. Introverts often prefer depth over breadth in friendship circles. For many introverts, connection is richest when it is focused. They may have fewer close friends, and those friendships can feel unusually meaningful. Depth can mean long conversations, shared rituals, and a sense of being truly known. It can also mean comfort with silence, where presence matters more than performance. Breadth has a cost. Each new relationship brings new social rules, new group dynamics, and more messages to answer. That can feel like mental clutter. Introverts often choose a smaller circle so they can show up fully. This can be misunderstood as being distant. In reality, it can be a form of loyalty. They invest where it matters most. Introverts can still enjoy communities and parties, especially with a trusted companion. Still, their social satisfaction often comes from quality, not quantity. A single hour with the right person can feel more nourishing than a whole evening of small talk. People can love solitude and still be deeply socially skilled. Solitude is not always a symptom. It can be a preference, a pleasure, and a source of creativity. Some people think best alone, and they return to others with clearer attention. Social skill is about reading cues, listening, and responding with timing and care. It does not require constant social appetite. A person can host a room beautifully, then feel happiest when the door closes. Many performers, therapists, and leaders are like this. They can be present and engaged in public and private afterward. This is why judging someone's sociability by how often they go out can be misleading. Some people avoid crowds because they are overwhelmed. Others avoid crowds because they would rather focus. The difference matters. Solitude can also strengthen social skill because it gives space for reflection. You review conversations. You notice patterns. You learn. When that learning returns to relationships, it can look like wisdom. Personality influences jealousy triggers, and also how repair happens afterward. Jealousy is not one emotion. It can be fear, anger, shame, or grief, depending on the person. Personality shapes what sets it off. A competitive person may feel threatened by a rival's status. A sensitive person may feel threatened by a partner's shift in attention. A highly conscientious person may feel threatened by broken agreements. Personality also shapes repair. Some people want direct reassurance and clear words. Others want actions, like consistent follow-through. Some want space first, because they need to cool down before they can speak kindly. If repair style mismatches, jealousy can spiral. One person pursues while the other withdraws. The fix begins with understanding triggers and repair needs as data. When that happened, I felt replaced. I need to know what our boundaries are. Jealousy becomes manageable when it is translated into specific requests and when partners treat it as a signal to clarify trust. Trait sensitivity can make kindness feel louder and insults feel sharper. Some people register emotional input with high resolution. A small compliment can warm them for hours. A passing criticism can echo for days. This sensitivity is not drama. It is a nervous system that reacts strongly to social cues. It can create intense gratitude, strong empathy, and a deep sense of meaning in relationships. It can also create quick hurt, especially in environments where teasing is constant. Sensitive people often become experts in reading tone, because tone has real impact on them. They may also use strong strategies to protect themselves, like avoiding conflict or rehearsing conversations. The most helpful shift is learning that sensitivity can be guided. Boundaries matter. Choosing kinder company matters. Self-talk matters too, because the mind often repeats what it hears. Sensitivity is a volume knob. You may not control the first spike of feeling, but you can learn what you feed afterward. In a supportive world, sensitivity can look like richness. In a harsh world, it can look like injury. Your brain's reward system links to extroverted motivation patterns. Extraversion is often connected to how strongly rewards pull your attention. Some brains light up at the promise of something good, like a social win, a new experience, or a bold project. That pull can create approach behavior. You move toward people, toward opportunities, toward the next step. It also shapes emotion. Anticipation can feel bright, and boredom can feel heavy. This is why extroverts often start things quickly. They feel the spark early. The downside is that not every reward arrives. Some plans fail. Some people disappoint. When reward seeking is high, disappointment can land hard, and impulsive choices can follow. Still, reward sensitivity can be a powerful engine. It supports leadership, exploration, and persistence in dynamic settings. The most fascinating part is that this system is not a personality slogan. It is a real pattern of attention and motivation that you can notice in your own life. Watch what energizes you. Watch what you chase. You are watching your reward system at work. Threat sensitivity links to neuroticism through attention and interpretation biases. When threat sensitivity is high, attention sticks to danger cues. A raised eyebrow, a vague comment, a sudden silence. The mind can interpret these as warning signs, even when they are ambiguous. That is an interpretation bias. It is not a conscious lie. It is a protective guess. This can create a loop. You look for threat, you find it, then your body reacts. The reaction makes the threat feel real, which makes you scan harder. Neuroticism often reflects this pattern. It can make life feel like walking through a room full of tripwires. The hopeful part is that biases can be retrained. You can practice alternative interpretations. You can slow the story down and ask, what else could this mean? You can gather evidence before reacting. You can also reduce baseline arousal through rest and routine, because a calmer body sees fewer threats. This does not erase caution. It makes caution more accurate. Personality connects to sleep, and poor sleep can mimic trait change. A single bad night can make a patient person snappy. It can make a confident person self-doubting. It can make a sociable person withdrawn. This can feel like your personality has shifted overnight. Often, It is sleep debt, changing your brain's regulation. When sleep is low, impulse control weakens. Negative emotion becomes stickier. Small tasks feel heavier. Over time, chronic poor sleep can make someone look more anxious, less agreeable, and less conscientious, even if their underlying tendencies have not truly changed. Sleep also affects social perception. When you are tired, faces look less friendly, and neutral messages can feel colder. That can create conflict that would not exist on a rested day. The fascinating part is how quickly sleep can restore you. Improving sleep for even a few nights can bring back patience and optimism. It is like cleaning a smudged lens. You see yourself more clearly, and you see others more accurately too. Chronic stress can shift traits temporarily, especially toward irritability and withdrawal. Stress is not only a feeling. It is a body state that changes behavior. Under prolonged pressure, many people become more reactive. They snap faster because the system is already loaded. They also withdraw because social interaction requires extra regulation that they cannot spare. A warm person may become blunt. A flexible person may become rigid. This can frighten people because it looks like a personality change. Often, it is a survival mode. The mind narrows focus toward threat reduction, and everything else becomes secondary. This mode can also change memory. You remember problems more than joys, which can make the world feel hostile. The way out is rarely a single insight. It is restoring recovery. It is reducing demands where possible, building small moments of relief, and returning to safe connection. When the body stops bracing, the old traits often reappear. This is why compassion matters during stress. You are not seeing someone's full self. You are seeing their load. Exercise predicts mood stability, which can change how traits express. Movement does more than strengthen muscles. It shifts emotion regulation. After consistent exercise, many people report fewer sharp mood swings and more steady energy. When mood is steadier, traits show differently. A person who is usually anxious may feel calmer and more patient. A person who is usually irritable may feel more tolerant. A person who is usually low in motivation may find it easier to start tasks. This can look like personality improvement, and in a sense it is. It is not because exercise changes identity. It is because it changes the baseline state the personality is expressed through. Exercise also builds self-trust. You prove to yourself that you can do hard things, and that confidence spills into other areas. The most useful detail is that it does not need to be extreme. Regular walking, swimming, dancing, or cycling can create the effect. Consistency matters more than intensity. Mood stability is a quiet superpower because it makes you easier to live with, and it makes life feel more manageable. Diet and gut health affect mood, which can affect social behavior. If your body feels inflamed, sluggish, or unsettled, your social self changes. You may cancel plans. You may speak less. You may lose patience sooner. Part of this is energy. Part is comfort. When the gut is unhappy, the brain receives signals that something is off, and mood can tilt darker. Some people become more anxious. Some become more irritable. That shift changes how you interpret other people. A harmless comment can feel like a slight when you are already on edge. This is why food routines can influence relationships in subtle ways. It is not about perfection or strict rules. It is about noticing cause and effect. When you eat in a way that supports steadier blood sugar and fewer digestive problems, you often become more socially resilient. You bounce back faster. You react less intensely. The fascinating part is how physical the social world is. Your personality does not live in a vacuum. It lives in a body. Hormones influence behavior, yet they do not create fixed personality types. Hormones are messengers, and messengers change how you feel and act. Shifts across puberty, pregnancy, postpartum periods, and menopause can change energy, mood, and sensitivity. Testosterone and estrogen can influence reward-seeking, stress response, and even confidence in the moment. Cortisol can push vigilance and irritability when it stays high. Still, these shifts do not carve you into a permanent category. They change the state your personality moves through. Two people can experience similar hormonal changes and respond differently because their traits, coping skills, and environments differ. Hormones also interact with sleep, nutrition, and stress, which makes their effects feel unpredictable. The danger is using hormones as a simple story. This is just who I am now. The more accurate story is dynamic. Hormones can nudge behavior, sometimes strongly. They can also settle, and you can adapt. Understanding this helps people avoid shame, and it helps loved ones offer patience without reducing someone to chemistry. Substance use can distort trait expression, especially impulsivity and empathy. Alcohol and other substances do not only change mood, they change brakes. Inhibitions loosen, and behaviors that were once filtered can spill out. A normally careful person may take risks. A normally sensitive person may miss social cues. Empathy can shrink because attention narrows toward immediate sensation and away from long-term consequences. This distortion can confuse relationships. Partners may say, "You were different last night." The person may say, "That was not me." In a sense, both are right. Traits are expressed through brain states, and substances alter those states. Over time, heavy use can also reshape routines and priorities, which makes the distortion more frequent. The most important detail is that a substance-revealing behavior is not a moral excuse. Harm still counts. Still, understanding distortion can help people separate baseline personality from altered states. It can guide boundaries, and it can guide recovery plans that rebuild stable behavior. When substances leave the system, people often recognize themselves again. That recognition can be a powerful motivator for change. Meditation can reduce reactivity, which can feel like trait change. Meditation is not about becoming blank. It is training attention and response. When you practice noticing thoughts without chasing them, you create a pause. In that pause, you can choose what you do next. For a reactive person, that choice can be transformative. Anger still rises, but it passes through more space. Anxiety still appears, but it is less sticky. Over time, this can look like lower neuroticism or higher self-control because the outward behavior becomes calmer. The fascinating part is that the mind starts to see patterns earlier. You catch the first spark of irritation before it becomes a fire. You catch the first spiral of worry before it becomes a storm. This does not require long sessions. Short daily practice can build the effect because repetition teaches the nervous system. Meditation also changes how you relate to identity. Instead of "I am an anxious person," it becomes "anxious feelings are here." That shift is subtle. It can also be life-changing. Therapy can shift traits, especially neuroticism and conscientiousness over time. Therapy is often imagined as talking about the past. It is also training for the future. When someone learns to regulate emotion, challenge catastrophic thinking, and tolerate discomfort, their baseline can change. Worry becomes less automatic. Self-criticism becomes less persuasive. That can look like lower neuroticism. Therapy can also build conscientiousness in a practical way. You learn planning skills, boundary setting, and follow through strategies that make life less chaotic. Over time, these skills become habits, and habits start to look like traits. The most fascinating aspect is that therapy can alter the relationship between feeling and action. You can feel fear and still act wisely. You can feel anger and still speak with control. That separation is powerful. It means you are not ruled by the first impulse. Different types of therapy emphasize different tools, but many share a common outcome. People become more flexible. They become more consistent. They become more able to choose the life they want, even when emotions are loud. People can fake good on tests, yet patterns still reveal clues. Some people answer like they are auditioning for sainthood. They pick the most flattering option, and they hope the score will open doors. Yet faking is harder than it seems. Questionnaires often ask the same theme in different ways, and inconsistencies show up like mismatched footprints. Someone claiming perfect calm might still endorse frequent irritation if the wording feels less threatening. Someone claiming extreme teamwork might also admit they hate taking advice, and the combination tells a story. There are also subtle statistical flags, like too many rare answers or too much uniform agreement. Even when people try to look good, their choices still reflect what they believe is desirable, which itself can reveal motives and values. A skilled assessor also compares scores with real behavior and with context. Tests are not lie detectors. Still, personality tends to leak through because you are guessing about yourself in hundreds of tiny moments. The best personality measures use many items to reduce random noise. One question can be a bad snapshot. You might answer differently if you slept poorly, had an argument, or misunderstood the phrasing. That is noise, and it can drown out signal. Longer measures fight this by asking many small questions that point toward the same underlying trait. Like taking many temperature readings instead of trusting one shaky thermometer, patterns become clearer as the sample grows. A single item about organization might be unfair to someone whose job is chaotic. A cluster of items can separate true disorder from a messy week. More items also capture different faces of the same trait, like reliability, planning, and follow-through. When many items agree, confidence rises. When they disagree, the test can reveal complexity instead of forcing a simple label. The trade-off is time, which is why quick tests often feel fun but fragile. If you want a measure to be useful, you want it to be patient, not hurried. Self-report tests miss blind spots, so observer ratings add value. You know your intentions, but other people live with your impact. That gap creates blind spots. You might believe you're a good listener because you care, while friends notice you often steer the topic back to yourself. You might believe you are low stress because you rarely complain, while co-workers notice you tense the room with urgency. Observer ratings add a second camera angle, and they often predict real outcomes well because they sample repeated behavior. Different observers also see different sides. A partner sees patience at home. A manager sees focus under deadlines. A friend sees playfulness and loyalty. When these perspectives line up, a trait looks stable. When they differ, you learn your context signature. The most useful approach is combining them with humility. The goal is not to crown one view as truth. The goal is to triangulate. With multiple angles, you get a sharper picture of who you are in the world, not only in your head. Personality tests predict better when combined with structured interviews. A questionnaire is like a map. An interview is like walking the terrain with a guide. Structured interviews ask the same kinds of questions in a consistent way, So impressions do not depend on charm or mood. They also invite examples. If someone reports high conscientiousness, the interviewer can ask for a recent time they met a hard deadline and what steps they used. If someone reports low conflict, the interviewer can ask what happens when they are criticized and how they repair. This matters because people interpret trait words differently. I am outgoing might mean I can talk when needed, or it might mean I chase crowds daily. Interviews also reveal context, like caregiving load, job demands, or health constraints, which can shift behavior without changing underlying double and done tendencies. The best predictions come from patterns across sources. Tests give breadth. Interviews give depth. Together, they reduce guessing, and they turn personality from a score into a story with evidence. Short tests are convenient, yet they often lose nuance and accuracy. Short tests feel satisfying. You answer a handful of questions, and you get a neat description that sounds personal. The problem is that small samples exaggerate accidents. One confusing question can swing the result. One mood can color every answer. Short tests also flatten facets. A person might be assertive in meetings and warm in friendships, but a brief scale may call them simply extroverted or not. That can mislead self-understanding, and it can mislead decisions like hiring or team matching. Another issue is false certainty. A quick label can feel definitive, which tempts people to stop reflecting. A longer assessment can hold complexity, and it can show where you are moderate rather than extreme. Short tests are not useless. They can start curiosity. The danger is treating them like a verdict. If a result feels wrong, it might not be you. It might be the instrument. Use short tests as conversation starters, and use deeper tools for choices that matter. Personality is not a diagnosis, and traits are not disorders. A trait describes a tendency, not an illness. Being high in neuroticism means you react strongly to stress. It does not automatically mean you have an anxiety disorder. Being low in agreeableness can mean you are blunt and skeptical. It does not automatically mean you are abusive. Diagnoses are about patterns that cause significant impairment or suffering, often across many areas of life. Traits can be intense without being disabling. They can also be mild and still interact with circumstances in painful ways. The distinction matters because people sometimes weaponize personality labels. They call someone narcissistic when they mean hurtful. They call someone antisocial when they mean introverted. That confusion creates stigma and bad decisions. Personality language is meant for understanding, not for medical branding. If someone is struggling, the helpful question is not, "What type are you?" It is what patterns cause you pain and what supports help. Traits can guide that conversation, but they are not the diagnosis itself. Disorders are patterns of suffering, not simply extremes of normal traits. It is tempting to imagine a straight line where more of a trait becomes a disorder. Reality is messier. A disorder involves distress, dysfunction, and often a loss of flexibility. Someone can be very orderly and still happy. Someone else can be moderately orderly and still feel trapped by rituals that steal hours. Someone can be emotionally sensitive and still have strong relationships. Someone else can feel emotions so intensely that they cannot keep work or friendships stable. What matters is not only intensity, it is cost. It is impairment. It is how much choice remains in the pattern. Disorders also involve specific clusters of symptoms, not just a high score on a broad trait. That is why proper assessment looks at duration, context, and impact, not only personality style. This framing reduces shame. it also increases clarity. If a pattern causes suffering, it deserves support. If a trait is simply unusual, it may be a strength in the right environment. The question is not, is this extreme? The question is this hurting your life? Traits can be strengths or weaknesses, depending on context and dose. Imagine a volume dial. Turn it up a little, and the sound becomes rich. Turn it too far, and it distorts. High conscientiousness can create excellence, but it can also create rigidity when plans must change fast. High openness can create creativity, but it can also create distraction when focus is needed. High agreeableness can build trust, but it can also lead to silence when a boundary should be spoken. Even neuroticism can warn you early about risk, while also exhausting you if the alarm never stops. The same trait can switch roles across environments. A blunt skeptic can prevent groupthink in a lab and still damage morale in a fragile team. This is why personality advice should be situational. Instead of asking, is this trait good? Ask, where does this trait shine? And where does it strain? You can then design life accordingly. You cannot swap your traits like outfits. You can learn their best settings. That is where power hides, inside context and calibration. Personality science rejects simple types, but it still studies useful profiles. Researchers often avoid strict boxes because people cluster loosely, not cleanly. Still, patterns exist. Certain combinations show up together, like high conscientiousness with low impulsivity, or high sociability with high assertiveness. Studying profiles helps answer practical questions. What mix predicts thriving in a high-pressure job? What mix predicts conflict in a shared household? What mix predicts who needs structure and who needs freedom? Profiles also help when traits interact. Two moderate traits can combine into a strong outcome, like moderate sensitivity, plus moderate planning producing careful leadership. The danger is treating profiles like destiny. The benefit is pattern recognition. Good science uses profiles as summaries, not identities. It asks, what tends to happen for people with this mix, while still leaving room for individual story? This middle path is useful. You do not need a rigid type to learn from personality. You need a map that respects variation and still highlights common pathways. Profiles can do that when they are held lightly and tested carefully. People crave types because stories are easier than sliding scales. A type feels like a character in a novel. You can picture it, name it, and explain it at a dinner table. Sliding scales feel like math, and humans are not built to love math at midnight. Types also offer belonging. If you share a label with others, you feel seen. There is comfort in thinking, I am not the only one like this. Another reason is control. A type can make uncertainty feel smaller. It suggests you can predict yourself and others, which feels safer than admitting mystery. The downside is that types can turn into cages. Someone avoids a challenge because that is not my type. Someone dismisses a partner because they are just that type. The better approach is to treat stories as doorways, not walls. A story can start reflection, then scales can deepen it. You can enjoy the narrative while still remembering that most humans live between extremes. You are not a label. You are a range and a pattern and a set of choices that change with time. The type you feel can reflect your current role, not your essence. Think about how you act when you are the responsible one. You plan, you watch the clock, and you keep things steady. Now think about how you act when you are the guest. You relax, you laugh more, and you take fewer decisions seriously. Roles pull different behaviors out of you, And after a while, the role can start to feel like identity. A new parent can feel suddenly conscientious. A new manager can feel suddenly assertive. A person in grief can feel suddenly withdrawn. None of these shifts prove that a core self was replaced. They show that behavior adapts to demands. The tricky part is that the role can become sticky. If you always play peacemaker, you may forget how to ask for help. If you always play leader, you may forget how to rest. The useful question is, which behaviors are demanded and which ones are chosen? That question loosens the costume. It lets you keep the parts that serve you and release the parts that only serve the role. People often misremember their past selves, which makes change feel invisible. Memory is not a video library. It is a reconstruction, and reconstruction follows today's beliefs. If you currently see yourself as shy, you may downplay the bold moments you once had. If you currently see yourself as confident, you may forget the years you hesitated. People also remember peaks and endings more than daily averages. You recall the dramatic breakup, not the months of steady learning that followed. That distortion makes growth hard to notice, because growth is often gradual. It is a new pause before reacting. It is one better boundary. It is one brave conversation. Those moments do not feel like a new identity. They feel like small choices. Later, they add up, and you still might not see it because you narrate the past through the present. One powerful practice is evidence keeping. Old messages, old journals, and honest feedback can show you the difference. When you see it, it can be emotional. You realize you have already changed. The invisible work becomes visible, and that visibility builds hope for future change. Your future self is not a stranger. It is a trainable continuation. Many people imagine the future self as a different person who will finally have discipline, confidence, or calm. In reality, the future self is built from today's habits and environments. That is good news, because it means you can train the continuation. The training is not grand. It is small promises you keep, which teaches your brain that you are reliable. It is friction you remove, like laying out clothes before morning. It is choosing circles that reinforce your best traits. When you do this, you are not waiting to become someone else. You are shaping what becomes easier next month. The future self also needs compassion. If you motivate with shame, you train fear, and fear is a shaky fuel. If you motivate with clear goals and realistic steps, you train steadiness. This is a way to think about personality that feels empowering. Your tendencies are real. Your trajectory is also real, and it responds to practice. Personality can shift through habits, because habits reshape daily feedback loops. A habit is a repeated vote for a certain version of you. When you practice punctuality, life becomes less chaotic, and you start trusting yourself more. That trust makes punctuality feel natural, which strengthens the habit. When you practice starting tasks in small steps, you experience less dread, and the reduced dread makes you more willing to begin next time. That is a feedback loop. Over months, these loops can move traits, not by magic, but by repetition and reward. Someone who builds routines may look more conscientious. Someone who practices speaking up may look more assertive. Someone who practices calming skills may look less reactive. The interesting part is that habits also shape how others treat you. If you become reliable, people offer more responsibility. If you become calm, people bring you harder conversations. Those social reactions become additional feedback, and personality expression shifts further. It is not that you woke up different. It is that the world responded differently to your repeated patterns, and you learned from the response. Trying a new behavior can change mood, which can reinforce a new trait. Behavior is not only an output, it is also an input. If you act brave for 10 minutes, your body often learns that the situation is survivable, and fear decreases the next time. If you act friendly in a small way, like greeting a neighbor, you may get a warm response, and warmth lifts mood. That better mood makes friendliness easier tomorrow. This is how tiny experiments can start identity change. The first attempt feels awkward because it is new. Then a small reward arrives, like a compliment, a solved problem, or relief after finishing. The brain pays attention to reward, and it begins to label the behavior as worthwhile. Over time, what started as an experiment becomes a default. This is why advice like "just be confident" fails, because it asks for a trait without building the loop. The effective version is smaller. Do one confident action. Let the mood shift teach you. Repeat. Traits are built from repeated experiences of success, safety, and meaning. Feeling understood can soften defensive traits, even in the same person. Defensiveness often looks like arrogance, stubbornness, or coldness. Underneath, it can be protection. When someone expects judgment, they fight first to avoid being hurt. When someone expects dismissal, they shut down to avoid humiliation. Feeling understood changes that expectation. If a person hears, "I get why you feel that way," their nervous system often lowers its guard. Then curiosity becomes possible. They can consider feedback without turning it into an attack. They can admit fear without losing dignity. This shift can be dramatic, and it can surprise everyone. The same person who is sharp in one relationship can be soft in another, because safety differs. Understanding does not mean agreement. It means accurate recognition. It is saying, your experience makes sense. Once that is offered, many defensive traits lose their job. They are no longer needed to survive the conversation. Over time, repeated understanding can reshape how someone expects relationships to feel. They become less braced. They become more open. In a way, they become more themselves, because fear stops driving the wheel. Personality can look different in another language because identity cues shift. Languages carry different social rules. In one language, directness can feel normal. In another, indirectness can signal respect. When you switch languages, you often switch scripts about politeness, humor, and emotion. Even your voice changes. Tone, rhythm, and intensity can shift with the sounds you are using. That can make you feel more confident or more restrained, depending on which language fits the setting. Some bilingual people report feeling more serious in one language and more playful in another. This is not pretend. It is context-shaping expression. Each language has phrases that make certain feelings easier to express and other feelings harder. It also has cultural expectations about how much to self-disclose, how to disagree, and how to show warmth. When those cues change, your traits can look different from the outside. The interesting lesson is that personality is not only inside you, it is partly in the social tools you have available. Change the tools, and the expression changes. When you are safe, your personality shows more play and curiosity. Safety is not only the absence of danger, it is the presence of permission. When people feel safe, they take small social risks. They joke. They ask questions. They explore. They try a new idea without needing certainty. Under safety, Even a serious person may reveal silliness, and even a guarded person may reveal tenderness. This happens because the brain stops spending energy on protection, and it can spend energy on exploration. You see this clearly in children. In a secure space, they invent games and stories. In a tense space, they monitor adults and shrink their movement. Adults do the same thing, just with subtler signals. Safe environments also invite honesty, which makes personality look richer. A person might admit they love poetry, or that they are nervous, or that they want connection. Those admissions are acts of courage, and safety makes courage easier. If you want to see who someone can become, watch what emerges when they feel safe. It is often brighter than their survival version. Under threat, many people narrow toward survival, not their best self. Threat can be obvious, like yelling, or subtle, like constant uncertainty. Either way, the brain shifts priorities. It reduces openness. It tightens attention. It favors quick reactions over thoughtful ones. In that mode, a generous person may become protective. A sociable person may become withdrawn. A calm person may become sharp. This narrowing is not a moral collapse. It is an adaptive response that kept humans alive for a long time. The trouble is that modern threats can be constant, like financial pressure or social comparison. When survival mode becomes a lifestyle, personality looks harsher and smaller. People start interpreting neutral events as threats because their nervous system is already primed. The path back is restoring signals of safety. Clear boundaries help. Predictable routines help. Supportive relationships help. Once the body stops bracing, the wider self returns. This is why judging people at their worst moment is often unfair. You may be seeing a threat response, not their character. The most powerful insight is this: types describe tendencies, not limits. A tendency is a probability, not a prison. If you tend to be anxious, you are more likely to worry, but you can still learn calm skills. If you tend to be introverted, you may prefer fewer interactions, but you can still build social confidence. If you tend to be disorganized, you may struggle with follow-through, but you can still create systems that hold you up. This framing changes everything because it turns labels into tools. A tool helps you predict what will be hard and what will be easy. It also helps you choose strategies that fit you. The wrong strategy feels like self-betrayal. The right strategy feels like alignment. Types can be comforting as shorthand, but they become dangerous when they are used as excuses. The deeper promise of personality science is not, "This is who you are forever." The promise is, "This is how you tend to start." From there, you can design growth with honesty, compassion, and realism. Your tendencies explain you. They do not define your ceiling. Tonight, we wandered through the hidden architecture of who you are. We explored the steady parts that feel familiar and the flexible parts that shift with love, stress, work, and time. We saw how traits can echo from infancy, how culture shapes expression, how sleep and safety can brighten or dim your natural tendencies. We watched how habits become loops, how roles become costumes, and how even something as simple as music or language can reveal a different shade of you. Personality is not a cage. It is more like a landscape. There are hills you climb easily, and valleys where effort feels heavier. There are climates that suit you, and climates that ask you to stretch. Across all 110 reflections, one idea keeps returning. You are patterned, yes, but you are not trapped. Your tendencies are starting points. Your direction is still yours. Now, Let the analysis fade into something softer. Imagine placing all those traits on a shelf for the night. The labels, the scales, the questions. Let them rest. You do not need to optimize yourself right now. You do not need to understand every layer. If you enjoyed this journey through personality types, I would love for you to like the video, subscribe to the channel, or share a thought below. And if you find yourself still awake, there is another gentle exploration waiting for you on the screen. But for now, allow your breathing to slow. Let your shoulders sink. Let your mind drift like a leaf on still water. No measuring, no comparing, just floating. Sleep well, and good night.